Well, hello there. Thank you for joining me today. I'm kind of in a crumbly mood because I'm working on a Chromebook. I had a crash on my laptop, so I'm temporarily on a Chromebook. And actually, they're fine for browsing around. So if you have one phone that you're using, I would suggest if you get a Chromebook, you could have your phone clean and ready to be able to take outdoors. Phones in the public are going to become liabilities. So maybe this Chromebook might be an ideal solution. They're really inexpensive now. You can surf the net and all that. But in my case, not ideal for running a website or a podcast. So I'm going to be fumbling along here today. I don't know when I'll be getting a new laptop. So in the meantime, I'm going to be talking about several things. I have this one big show I've already got written, so I'm pulling things apart because I don't trust doing a really long show on this Chromebook. So anyway, this will cover a lot of things because you're going to just have to keep track because it's going to cover all the things going on. The next show is going to be about the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. Found an interesting connection to them, and none other than the Ku Klux Klan. Who could have guessed that one, right? And what's up with the latest guy from Israel getting caught in an FBI sting? No one seems to be mentioning, is it likely a psyops? Well, yeah, I'm sure that it is a psyops, and I'll tell you why. And I have lots of details over my website, but on the links you're going to need to copy and paste them. I may be able to get help later to get them fixed, but in the meantime, I have lots of information over there, but you'll have to just copy and paste the links yourself. This is not unusual with this Israeli guy getting hauled off and, getting hauled off to Israel instead of staying here to have charges made because, really these people all target each other. Like right now, John Bolton's house is being raided by the FBI. One day soon, J.D. Vance will be the president. This is all to start a civil war here. I've been saying this for years. This country is going down, down, down. Once they get the people angry enough to take a stand, the UN troops will be here. NATO is right there in Virginia. Good morning, Virginia. All the able-bodied men coming across the border. The Kigali principles will be in full play at that point. People will likely cheer the UN coming into the United States soil. And this all wraps together because the big file I'm working on, this is part of, is the Khazarian Mafia, the calendar reform. They did some fascinating calendar reform. And all those people that came out of that Russia-Poland area, the Jewish migration, those people like Golda Meir, they follow the route from the Russia area, and also Poland is in play. Because, for example, when I started following that route, that makes a lot of sense because Golda Meir and all of those people that founded Israel just so happened to come from that region, right? They changed their names, they went over and they took over Israel. Well, interesting story. So this also connects with Poland. As a matter of fact, there's a so-called comedian called Theo Von. He's one of the Rogan guys, and he's on all over social media. He did interviews with J.D. Vance and Trump. Yeah, anybody can get interviews with those people, right? Well, he actually connects. He's the nephew of a Polish mafia guy, so they all connect, every single one of them. And I'll be doing this in series, so you're going to have to do some connecty on your own. Because we have all of the top mafia people also happen to come from that region. Meyer Lansky, born 1902, died 1983, born in Grodno, the Russian Empire, which is today Belarus. Immigrated to New York, became the mastermind of the American Mafia, ran casinos, Cuba, Las Vegas, and the Bahamas. Partners of Lucky Luciano and Bugsy Siegel. Yeah, Bugsy Siegel also came from over in that area, from the Ukraine-Poland area. Arnold Rothstein, another big mobster, Eastern Europe, likely Poland, Russia. So yeah, we have a lot of them over from that region. Gee, imagine all of this, right? And as it just so turns out, this Alexander dude that just got busted in this thing, well, his name also originates from that region. Gee, this all sounds like it's just a big coincidence to me. And then all of these people, many of these men, especially Lansky, Siegel, and Rothstein, were not mafia in the Sicilian sense, but they partnered with Italian mob bosses like Lucky Luciano, Frank Costello, and Joe Adriana to create the National Crime Syndicate in the 1930s. And imagine that coming from that region over there. We had Meyer Lansky from Russia, Bugsy Siegel from Poland, Ukraine area, Arnold Rothstein from Eastern Europe, Jewish heritage, Louis Lepe Buchholz, Russia, Polish, Jewish parents, Jacob Shapiro, Russia, Polish, Jewish parents, Abner Zwilman, Russia, Polish, Jewish parents, Mo Daltz, Russian, Jewish parents, Maimon Holtz, Russian, Polish, Jewish parents, and this pervert that they just caught from Israel, Alexandrov, is also from that region. This is 100% a psyops. Look at all of the players. The founders of Israel who changed their names came from the same region. The main U.S. mafia figures, Lansky and Siegel, same areas. And where were they? Well, they were right there in Las Vegas at what is called the Black Hat Conference. The Black Hat Conference gathers the world's most brilliant hackers, researchers, and security minds. It's billed as a celebration of ingenuity, a place where vulnerabilities are exposed to make systems stronger. But this year, the spotlight turned away from technology and onto a man, Tom Alexandrovich. His sudden arrest in an FBI sting shocked those paying attention. But what followed was even stranger. Silence. Few headlines. I have cruised everywhere on social media. Little social media chatter about no open debates. No one is wondering, was this simply law enforcement doing its job or a carefully engineered setup? And then comes a deeper layer. Androdanovich, a name that carries echoes of the Romanovs, the last empire dynasty of Russia. A name weighted with history, power, and bloodlines. Could it be a coincidence, or does it symbolize the matter itself? Today I'm going to take a look beyond the sting operation and into the shadows. Where history and modern power games collide. Was Tom Alexandrovich targeted before he even arrived? And what does the Romanov Connection really mean in all this? An interesting other suspect among the other suspects, and of course there were 8 suspects, right? When you have a psyops, they're coded like crazy. So in this case, there were 8, count them, 8. If you take an 8 apart, it makes 33, right? So among the other suspects was Las Vegas Redemption Church pastor Neil Harrison Creasy, C-R-E-E-C-Y, 46. A local church official told the station that Creasy resigned shortly after being released from jail on a $10,000 bond. Under Nevada law, hiring a child with a computer for a sex act can carry between 1 and 10 years. This Las Vegas pastor thought he was meeting a 14-year-old boy for sex. Funny thing, I am fairly decent at finding things online. There is no photo of this creep online, scrubbed. Beyond that, no other credible or current photos of Neil Harrison Creasy, the Redemption Church pastor arrested in the Las Vegas sting. None of them had his link. I even asked ChatGPT to search for me, so this supports my observation that it's unusually difficult to find his image. So, every year, thousands of the world's brightest hackers, researchers, and security professionals converge on Las Vegas for one of the most important technology gatherings in the entire world, the Black Hat Conference. It's billed as a celebration of knowledge, a stage for breakthroughs, and a space where vulnerabilities are exposed not to punish but to protect. But this year, beneath the lights of the convention center and the buzz of cyberculture, the darker story unfolded. Tom Alexandrovich, not a celebrity hacker, not a corporate face, but a figure with enough presence to draw attention, walked into the Black Hat Conference. And not long after that, his name began to circulate in whispers, except this time, the buzz didn't lead to recognition, but suspicion. This silence is deafening, and it leads to one question. Was Tom Alexandrovich simply unlucky, or was he deliberately targeted? As stories began to surface, fragments suggested that old Tom may have been arrested, or at least singled out. The details are murky, but what is clear that is his presence at Black Hat didn't end like it did for thousands of others who simply boarded planes and went home. The possibility of a setup raises disturbing questions. Black Hat is a place where hackers show exploits, where governments and corporations watch closely, and where the line between research and suspect can blur with a single presentation. Imagine this: a conference built to expose flaws in systems may have been turned into a trap designed to expose flaws in people. Was Black Hat used not as a platform for knowledge, but as a hunting ground for Tom himself? Also, here's what's more chilling. In other cases, individuals have been singled out at tech events, targeted not for crimes they committed, but for what they knew, or for what they might one day reveal. So why the silence? Why did social media, usually quick to react, fall quiet? Is it fear? Is it suppression? Or was the story buried before it had a chance to surface? In the silence, the shadows can grow longer. This story isn't only about Tom Alexandrovich. His case is a lens into something much bigger, a system where conferences, conventions, and public gatherings can be weaponized, turned from open forums of ideas into surveillance nets. When a hacker or researcher shows up at Black Hat, they believe they're among peers, in a space that values ingenuity. But what if that very stage designed for innovation is being used to entrap those who step too far outside the lines? The uncomfortable truth is this: Tom Alexandrovich may have been targeted not for what he did in public, but for who he was, or for what he represented. His presence may have been enough to trigger forces far larger than himself. And that leads us to the question no one wants to ask out loud. Was Tom a warning to others? A test case for how far authorities will go in weaponizing community spaces? Or just the latest pawn in an intelligence game that runs far deeper than the surface of the Black Hats? We do raise questions, but I don't have all the answers no one else dares mention, because a Black Hat, the conference that celebrates hackers, can be turned into a place where one of their own is hunted. Then what does that mean for the rest of us? So every year they attend this conference, and as the stories began to surface, fragments suggested that Tom may have been arrested, or at least singled out. The details are still murky, but what is clear is the presence of Black Hat didn't end like it did for everybody else. So I believe 100% it's a setup. The story isn't only about Tom Alexandrovich. His case is a lens into a much bigger picture. So, step back for a minute. What if this wasn't only about Tom? What if his targeting is part of a deeper play, one meant to spark outrage, to divide people, and to infiltrate conflict on American soil? And this is exactly what I think is going on. Artiom Alexandrovich is to spark fury. This Israeli guy is over here and he tried to rape one of our girls. We gotta make this stop. Make Israel stop. You hear them all shouting on social media? They are literally screaming their heads off on social media in a very focused way, and I'll get to that in a minute. This case is actually an excellent way for me to express exactly how this all works. So think about the timing. Think about the reaction. The headlines never came. A foreign figure, reportedly Israeli, moving against someone here in America at a conference that symbolizes freedom of knowledge. It was a perfect spark for outrage, because outrage is currency. Outrage is now how lines get drawn when people are forced to pick sides between the hacker and the state, between America and Israel, between silence and shouting. The stage is set not just for an arrest, but for division. And that division may be the real point. A civil war doesn't start with a gunshot. It starts with seeds of distrust. It starts with setups like this, a carefully engineered story where we're told who to hate, who to blame, and where to focus our anger. And yet conveniently missing from this narrative is America's own dark history with child exploitation, trafficking, and silenced victims. The United States has been a player in these crimes for decades, but that history is erased in favor of a simpler script. Focus your fury on Tom. Argue endlessly about guilt and innocence, and let the deeper truth go unspoken. That is how manipulation works, and that is why this story is bigger than one man. It's about outrage is being engineered to tear us apart from within. If Black Hat, the conference that celebrates hackers, can be turned into a place where one of its own is hunted, that makes another kind of a statement. So I was cruising around the usual suspects on social media, and something really stood out to me. The U.S. is statistically the top spot for internet crimes against children. The United States, did you hear me clearly? This country is, in fact, statistically the top spot for internet crimes against children, and that is not disputed. Yet nobody is mentioning that fact in connection with this case. Nobody is mentioning the Black Hat Conference either. The world's premier hacking cyberspace gathering where Alexandrov just happened to be when he was arrested. What the hell is going on? Here's what's even stranger. Social media will not shut up about Epstein, blackmail networks, and compromised officials. But when it comes to Tom Alexandrovich, a senior Israeli cybersecurity official, it's radio silence. No suspicions, no context. And the kicker? Reports say he was scheduled to meet with the NSA the very next day. Instead, he ends up busted in a sting operation. You can't call that a coincidence, but if you've been paying attention, it's how setups work. It smells a lot more like timing to me. And let's take a look at this guy's name for starters. The name, I'm a little bit confused about this whole name thing, so I don't want to confuse you in my reading, so I have posted all of this over on my website because I'm just now getting this information today myself. So, okay, so etymology of the word Artemios. Artemios is a Greek masculine name derived from Artemia, the goddess of the hunt, wild animals, chastity, and childbirth. So that's what the name means, right? The name essentially means dedication to Armenia or of Artemius. In Latin form, it appears as Artemius. In early Christianity, the name Artemidius became known in the Christian tradition because of Saint Artemidius of Artichoke, a Roman general under European Constantine who later converted and was martyred under Emperor. I'm having some trouble with my. It's very complicated to work on a Chromebook. So let me back up here a second. And I'm also extraordinarily sick, so I'm starting to lose my eyesight. So let me see here. Okay, I got back on track here. Give me a second. So it was used in that era, okay. In Eastern Roman Byzantine world, Artemius was fairly common as a given name, reflecting both classical and Christian influences. But then there's some Slavic adaptations, and like I said, I'm a little bit lost on all of this, but here's the point here. Roman nobility, the form Artemium becomes very popular in Russia. So they use names like Artemonievich, and so his root name comes from the Romanovs, and really right now I really can't explain any more to you, but I have it all down below. I would encourage you to look. So what it is, it's a Romanov family naming pattern. So let me bring this up a little bit higher. Hold on a second here. Okay, it was Tsar Alexander Alexandrovich. Alexander II had children, including Nicholas Alexandrovich. And yeah, the whole line goes down, and they all trace to the Romanovs. So in my world, this is very, very significant. So what it is they take these two names and put them together. And like I said, I am very fuzzy over all this right now, so I will try not to make you fuzzy also. So I have it all down below, and I will get back to that later. So there was a covert operation aimed at apprehending child sex predators in Henderson, Nevada, in the Las Vegas Valley, and it led to the arrest of 8 individuals. That number 8, right? So, it was a sting operation. It was detectives from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, the FBI, North Las Vegas and Henderson Police Departments, Homeland Security investigations, the Nevada Attorney General's office, and yeah, everybody's going crazy on social media over one of these attorneys because they're Israeli. But what happens is they move in and they throw in this stuff that, yeah, sure, it's important to know there's some crooked-looking acting Israeli attorney in this mix, but it's not the whole story. So anyway, so the individuals, all men. One guy's 40, another Tom's 38, another guy 35, another guy 23, another guy 23, another guy 23, another guy 29, and a couple 46 and 49-year-olds, okay. Among the individuals arrested following the 2-week sting operation was Tom Artiom. Jesus, what a day today. Hang on a second. Okay. Among the individuals arrested following the 2-week sting operation was Tom Artiom, and that the Artiom and the Alexander part of his name, those are the things that we need to focus on next. And I've got all the data for you, but not for right now. So Tom Artiom Alexandrovich is his whole name. It's TAA, the executive director of the Defense Division of the Israeli National Cyber Directive, or the INCD. So the date shows August the 6th, and the location is Henderson Township. Okay, so the Romanov family, they used the surnames like Alexandrovich, and that's why when I was looking at his name, I kept thinking, sounds kind of familiar. So the name came out of the Romanovs, and in Russia and many Slavic traditions, people use a given name and a patronymic surname. So Tom Artiom Alexandrov means Tom, son of Artiom of the Alexandrius line. So yeah, I would have to say This is, in fact, a psyops. They always put one of their key players in to head up the psyops. This is a reward for Tom to be playing this role. Don't kid yourself, okay? So, yeah, I've got everything you want to know about this stuff. So, he'd just been in Las Vegas meeting FBI and reportedly due to meet NSA the following day. It raises the possibility of political setup versus legitimate bust. Sex scandals have been used as neutralization tools against powerful figures who become inconvenient. There was a case with Dominique Strauss, the IMF chief in 2011, hotel maid scandal, derailed the political career just as he was challenging U.S. dollar dominance and considering a French presidency run. There was Julian Assange, another major liar. Julian Assange, that whole WikiLeaks thing, that's actually an Israeli operation. So they got him on sexual allegations, but that wasn't true. Jeffrey Epstein, intelligence asset, ran sexual blackmail operations among elites. Silvio Berlusconi, remember those bunga parties? The scandals destabilized his government, tied into CIA, NATO, Gladio networks, and control over European politics. We had Petraeus, affair scandal, forced resignation just before he was due to testify on Benghazi. There's a lot of patterns here, right? The method is usually sex-related charges, compromises, remove or control powerful players. And the targets are usually those who have become inconvenient to the United States, NATO, or allied intelligence terrorists, or those who push against hidden power networks. So, because I have all these other strange coincidences that I'll be talking about next, were you aware that the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, and the Ku Klux Klan connect? Yeah, neither did I. They not only connect by how I'll show you in the history, but they also connect through their logos. So the ADL has a history involved in law enforcement training and surveillance. Yeah, I'll be talking about that next. So the people in Israel, their whole background is also they work with the ADL. The ADL is an American company, okay? And they are the ones that are involved in getting law enforcement trained over in Israel. So we got that connection, right? And we have then what they did during that case was they positioned the KKK, it's a crazy story and I'll be getting back to it, as the ADL's enemy. And so then they monitored them, infiltrated, and occasionally mirrored by intelligence operations. So yeah, there's a pattern of dual operations that have always gone on with this country. And there's a pattern of, let me see here, dual operations controlled both the accused oppressor and the defender of rights. So if Alexandrovich was set up, his sting fits neatly into this pattern of sex scandal neutralization as a political weapon. It raises the question, was the U.S. sending a message to Israel's cyber intelligence establishment? More broadly, these tactics maintain elite control, with scandal as both the sword and the shield. So they were over there working on what they called a ICAC sting. That's Internet Computer, U thing. What is that? Well, it's officers or agents. They pose as minors, sometimes 12 to 15 years old, in chat rooms, apps, or social media. If an adult initiates explicit conversation, sends illicit material, or tries to arrange a meeting, police may set up an arrest. Many arrests hinge on chat logs, which can be interpreted differently depending on context, which is always convenient, right? So they can always skew the evidence however they want it. And there's always the entrapment risk. If the officers push, persuade, or initiate sexual conversation, defense lawyers will argue the suspect may not have acted without government pressure. And they use selective targeting. Sometimes individuals are flagged due to personal grudges, social media reports, or even political community dislike. If police decide to focus on someone, it can shape the sting outcome. Evidence interpretation. Prosecutors may highlight the worst lines in the chat logs, but omit hesitations, refusals, or attempts to change the subject. Civil liberty groups have accused the ICAC of over-policing online spaces, creating crime opportunities instead of just monitoring. Inflating charges, like adding intent counts even if no physical meetings happened. In some cases, people who were socially awkward, lonely, or mentally ill have been drawn into conversations they didn't fully understand. So what if someone was set up? A defense attorney would look for signs of entrapment. Did law enforcement initiate or escalate the sexual content? Did the suspect express reluctance that was ignored or overridden? Was the minor unusually persistent? A red flag, it was an undercover cop. Courts vary on what counts as entrapment, but there's precedent for dismissal if officers went too far. So yes, it's very possible also that people just did not like Tom. They could have directed ICAC attention his way, or ensured he was drawn into the sting more aggressively than others. These task force do work with tips and several law enforcement, so personal animosities can play a major role in who gets targeted first. And don't forget, you got packs of psychopaths. You think they're all going to be buddy and friends? Of course not. Everybody is out to report, to knife the next guy in the back is how it all working. So, Artiom Alexandrovich was a senior cybersecurity official in Israel's government. Cyber agencies are high stakes, high ego spaces where colleagues or rival departments may view a figure as abrasive or threatening. If he pushed too many people around, he may have accumulated enemies. Rivalries in intelligence and security bureaucracies are common. If he pushed too many people around, internet crime sweeps are broader nets. Law enforcement insiders can flag. Yeah, he could have been flagged. I don't think he was flagged. I think that this was a whole psyops. Now, I think they probably set it up so the people that flagged him or whatever they think they did likely think that was part of the plan, right? But these are all controlled things. Not everybody's going to have all the same information. So likely there's people in this chain of things they'll know nothing. They'll think that he was set up. So there's been a lot of things going on because Robert Maxwell, as a matter of fact, was intelligence-linked mogul cut off when he overreached. That's Dominique Kaussky, the IMF guy. Yeah, they got him. They got David Petraeus. So they have a distinct history of blackmail and all of these other sleazy things going on. And I have a complete list of them down below. They have been neutralizing, gagging, murdering, and getting rid of people over scandals since time started here in this country. They actually all hate each other's guts, but they hate us more than they hate each other. That is what unites them. And I found the most interesting comment when I was scanning the comments around, and someone said, if God actually chose these people, I demand a new God. So yeah, I'm sure it was all a psyops, and Tom does not look or act that stupid. Tom has got to be in on it. There was a case I was looking into earlier in the week. There was this case in Kentucky, in a part of Appalachia, and the whole town has gone insane, literally. The sheriff shot the judge because the judge was having sex. It's the most insane thing. These criminals had the whole town under control. Nobody could talk. Everybody was afraid. Yeah, and the sheriff actually shot the judge. This is the United States of America, crime central. That is what it is. So when I was cruising the usual suspects, I wanted to see what they were saying, right? I wanted to see what they had to say about this guy from Israel, Tom, and if they had anything to add to it, right? Well, one person actually added to it. The guy over on Breaking Points, he actually did some research. These people basically just read scripts, right? They have about 1.5 million subscribers, so he basically did some research, and this proves my point. He said, I spent the last few days with my baby in hand and trying to do all this research and try to figure all this out. I took a look for myself. People are like, oh, God, you did some research. This is terrific. Well, I guess people think they've been doing this all along, but I got news for you. No, they aren't. So people are like, oh, this is so great. He did this research. So anyway, so I've been thinking a lot about all of this MSM business because it is so repetitive, okay? Every single show that I've ever scanned of these people, and you know who they are, they always point out they are not MSM or legacy media. It is like a mantra, right? And they say, we are independent truth tellers. So, yeah, it's really kind of a slick trick because what they basically have done is this. The days of network media are over, gone, done, brush it up, too expensive. They need to add confusion to the fire. They want a bunch of people that are unconstrained, people sitting around in hoodies and jeans and sitting there shouting and screaming all kinds of things that are true or not true, right? So what I keep thinking is this appears to be how mind control works, repeating all those same mantras. And for all of them to save money on all of this, because podcasts have exploded in the last couple of years due to how cheap they are to produce, and podcasts started getting monetized only a couple of years ago, so they can also double dip. So basically, what's going on is that all of these people are self-censoring themselves to keep that ad revenue rolling. But I am here to say this is also a form of mind control. Maybe not some big crazy one that you're thinking about, but it's a use of behavioral psychology, repetition, and group enforcement. The repetition of these mantras, we're not mainstream media. Hit that bell, like and subscribe. Legacy media is lying to you. Repetition creates familiarity bias. If you hear it every show, your brain starts to accept it as truth without needing proof. Us versus them framing. We're the truth tellers. They're the old corrupt elites on MSM. This builds a tribal identity around the channel. Once someone identifies with a tribe, they're more likely to defend it, spend money, and ignore contradictions. Authority without accountability. I gotta hand it to Walter Cronkite. He was one of the CIA's best agents. You know, when old Walter showed up on the air, he was the most trusted man in America. He showed up calm, he wore a suit, he lied through his teeth, but no one knew it, right? And everybody trusted Cronkite. Did he start the show with endless ads? Did he read ads during the show? Of course not. He was the authority figure in that newsroom. But now what we have is authority without accountability. No newsroom, no fact checking. Just, I'm authentic. I'm in my hoodie. I'm not corporate. This appearance of humility becomes a form of authority. They seem real, so people trust them more than polished anchors. And I'm going to have to put this on hold and take a quick break here. Okay, let me continue on here. It is not going to be sustainable for me to work on this Chromebook. It's just not going to work. And I don't know how I'm going to get a new laptop. I have a half dozen shows that I really want to share with you, but I got a sick cat sitting next to me. Things aren't going well. So let me just focus on this and I'll worry about that later. Okay, so it's actually interesting what they're doing on social media. You know, all this stuff about join the live chat, be part of the involvement movement, super chat to support us. It's the illusion of intimacy, makes viewers feel personally connected, even though the host rarely responds directly. Yes, they're always saying, yes, comment for the algorithm, and most of them will never, ever answer your comments. If you pay them a super chat, they may say your comment out loud. They basically hate our guts, okay? And how long is that going to take for people to stop hanging around these losers? But anyway, I don't want to get off track here. So what it is this. It's called entrainment. And what it does, it's this drum beat, and it creates entrainment, a mild trance state. And it's where people expect the same rhythms and emotional hits. When you step back, it's textbook behavioral conditioning, a family of mantras, all saying the same thing, at the same tones, with the same rhythms, creates an echo chamber that looks spontaneous, but is actually highly structured. So, because the U.S. government has been doing mind control since MK7, so anybody surprised by any of this stuff? That's the whole thing, because people are acting like, oh yeah, he was just over in Las Vegas trying to molest a girl and a U.S. citizen. No one's considering the U.S. history of complete immorality, going after people, killing off their own people, everything they do is vile, evil, and psychopathic. And so they're using this to get away from paying all the money from mainstream media and to drill up the Civil War even bigger. They've switched to mass techniques instead of individual dosing. Instead of LSD on one person, now it's algorithm, curated feeds. Independent voices play into the same ecosystem. Even if not controlled directly, many outsider media figures use the same psychological levers: repetition, tribalism, outrage cycles, because it builds audience loyalty and revenue. So when you say it appears to be mind control, a family of mantras, it is absolutely on point. It's not mind control in the sci-fi brain chip sense, but behavioral entrainment, which is just as effective for guiding mass populations. And they have a whole history of it, and I've got a whole history of it down below. So, and then comes the monetization tricks. They have YouTube ads, baseline revenue for clicks and views. They have super chats and live streams, direct cash from fans, podcast syndication. They have merchandise, hats and mugs, t-shirts with their branding on them, sponsorship ad reads for supplements, VPNs, gold and silver investments, etc. So you don't need to build credibility through quality content. They just need to generate attention and outrage, which bring the algorithm reward. That's why they keep repeating, we're not mainstream media every show. It's part of the branding, a form of hypnotic reinforcement to make the audience feel they're in an exclusive tribe against the elites. But the irony is this: they're cheaper to produce than the old TV. They monetize more streams, ads, merch, and super chats. Could you imagine Walter Cronkite trying to sell t-shirts with his logo on it? They position themselves as authentic rebels, but most are just people sitting there. They're entrepreneurs following a formula. Why they keep repeating this? Because they're audience signaling. Their core value proposition is, we are the truth tellers. We're not corporate. We're on your side. Repeating it is a way to constantly reinforce the boundary between them, CNN, New York Times, Fox, etc. In a crowded info market, hammering the not mainstream line separates them if, ironically, they rely on mainstream sources. Yeah, they're sitting there reading from mainstream sources while they're yelling, we're not getting from mainstream sources. Parasocial bonding, the casual sweatshirt, baseball cap presentation says this: I'm one of you, not a polished news anchor. That reinforces authenticity, even if the content itself is repackaged mainstream reporting. Their content pipeline, they rely on MSM. Most of them do not have investigative bureaus or field reporters. They read from AP, Reuters, New York Times, Washington Post, or local TV write-ups. Then they add their commentary. low production costs compared with high legacy media that spends millions on investigative reporting. Foreign bureaus, legal vetting, independent shows can run off of YouTube ads, Patreon, or Substack. And that's another trick. They say, well, come over, I'm going to put the best of my material over on Patreon. Well, you realize that when people have gone down in the past, Patreon joins in taking them down. So they have also positioned themselves as, well, if you pay a little extra, you come over to Patreon. I totally resist that. People told me that, well, why don't you start a Patreon account? I am not into class systems of any strike or form. I don't even like asking for help. Here I am. I need a new computer. I don't want to ask you for help because I don't want to patronize you. Because that is not how it should work, okay? That is not how it should work. But I got to tell you, I do get a little agitated when I see all these people getting all of this help, all of this revenue, and I'm surviving on about $50 a month in donations. So anyways, I'll get off of that track because I find it way too annoying. But anyway, so basically what we're looking at is you're being brainwashed by all of these people. The repetition, the persuasion, saying we're not them, on and on. I mean, it is endless, and it all has to do with they are cheaper and they can have more of them, right? Independent media offers, it depends on MSM to source the stories. They rely on the same outrage cycles that MSM creates. They build identity by attacking MSM while structurally leaning on it. In effect, the sweatshirt, baseball cap, outsider persona is as much a scripted media role as a suit and tie anchor, just at a lower budget and pitched as anti-establishment. Most of what gets branded today as independent media, and there are some independent media people, I am certainly not indicating that, but most of it is actually commentary media. They take someone else's reporting, usually MSM, and they add outrage, humor, or ideological spin. Very few do original investigative journalism. Because, for example, they're all in a big fight now over this guy named Nick Fuentes, and he brought up the fact that Tucker Carlson's dad was CIA. Tucker Carlson's like, Nick Fuentes is a dumb little gay kid in the basement. My dad? Yeah, well, his dad was CIA. It's written right there on his Wikipedia page. I've known that for years. And, you know, his dad was married to a Swanson heiress. He came from extreme money. Tucker Carlson is just positioning himself as an everyman. He is nothing more than a line elite himself, okay? So they put on these clothes. A lot of them are wearing wigs under those baseball caps. So I don't know what else to tell you, but, you know, the facts are the facts, and these people are basically dangerous little loudmouths sitting there, right? So, you know, they can make all the claims that they want, they can hide all they want, but I'm here to tell you, you are wasting your time and they are draining you of your most important asset, and that is your time. Your time has to have value. You should be thinking about, how am I going to get another computer so I don't have to work on a Chromebook? Or how are you going to get a Chromebook so you can't so you don't have to take your phone outside so the cops might not nail you? There's just a lot to all this, but it's very simple, and none of it, all of it is right there in front of us, as obvious as can be. Because the bloggers, the people that I rely on, they're the people who really dig for all the dirt. My work stands on the backs of all of those people. I do not get ideas or work from these people on social media. I will cruise by there once I've read and figured it all out when I'm looking for a clip, but that is about it, because they recycle, and recycle. Like, how many of them have done shows about those orphan train kids? Have any of them ever bothered to try to figure out what happened to those poor kids? Well, no, of course not. That does not fit the narrative here. So anyway, so I've said enough. I've got all of this written down below for you to take a look for yourself, because they're just trying to hook us with, we are just like you. I reject that wholly. I have nothing in comparison with any of these liars, and I refuse to buy into that mantra. So let me take another look here to make sure I got what I need for today, because I'm hoping I can come back. Maybe this Chromebook will last me to do a show about the KKK. This anti-defamation league and the Ku Klux Klan is it is really kind of a hair-raising story how the Ku Klux Klan got in touch and recruited by the Anti-Defamation League. The story can't get any crazier than this, but I'm here to tell you I got all the facts, because what they say is this: it's slick because the system now doesn't need government censors when the profit structure itself ensures conformity. Nobody has to say, don't investigate. The ad revenue already makes sure they won't. This is about omission. They hate our guts. Joe Rogan even said, only crazy people are in the comments. Do not talk to those people. They refer to us as those people. Remember, they are the chosen ones. And here is the irony of all of this. The USA is consistently ranked as the largest global host of child sexual abuse material websites in the entire frigging world. Reports from groups like the Internet Watch Foundation and the Canadian Centre for Child Protection notes that well over 90% of detected child sexual abuse URLs are based on U.S. servers. So, we're sitting here and we're the country that is in charge of all of this stuff, right? And the black hat factor, the black hat Las Vegas was swarming with FBI, NSA, DHS, military cyber units, and global intelligence reps. Every year, there are stories of attendees being detained at airports, laptops seized, or people being approached for recruitment or interviews. To arrest an Israeli government cyber official there right before a reported NSA meeting is too perfectly timed to be random. There is not a single major contributor, influencer, or independent journalist who has mentioned this context. Now, maybe I have missed them, but I don't think so. None of them have been talking about this Black Hat conference. None of them have been indicating that this might be a false flag, right? They are just outraged. I'm telling you, outraged that these Israelis had a nerve to come here. Just the nerve of these people. So yeah, mainstream media, they report the surface Israeli officials caught in ICAC sting without touching the deeper intelligence political context. The alt media and YouTube talkers, they mostly repackage the MSM reports. They do not do original reporting. So everyone repeats the safe story. No one risks suggesting anything that could be a setup, blackmail, or political neutralization operation. This fits a known pattern where sex, crime, alligators, especially child exploitation stings, they're used for career kill switches for insiders who step out of line. They're used as preemptive takedowns of people about to engage with U.S. agencies like Alexandrov's supposed NSA meeting. They're perfect smears because no one will publicly defend the accused or ask questions. Fear of being branded as soft on pedophilia. So why is this case suspicious? Well, the timing. Arrested at the Black Hat Conference of all places, right before NSA talks. The U.S. equals global CSAM hub, yet chosen to make a high-profile arrest of a foreign cyber official instead of cleaning its own hosting industry. Silence. No journalist or social media personality is pointing to Black Hat, the conference swarming with intelligence operatives as the settings. Precedent. Similar takedowns of figures like the guy from Khan, the guy they took down with the maid and the chambermaid. The others show how sex scandals are used to neutralize people before major meetings or power plays. So I've got a whole structure of takedown of all the things they've done. They took down Robert Maxwell, and Robert Maxwell was robbing people's pension funds. What are they doing right now? Well, they're getting ready to rob pension funds. Yeah, they had the Petreas. These were all coordinated effects on purpose. So, this Artiom Alexandrovich, timing is never random. Arrests and scandals strike just before or during major summits and conferences. Sex crime allegations are the perfect tool. They instantly destroy credibility and guarantee silence. Conferences amplify visibility. Black hat, IMF meetings, NATO summits, perfect stages for takedowns. Winners are always clear. Rivals, successors, appointees, or state interests benefit from the neutralization. And that, my friends, is how it all works. And with a lick of luck, I'll be back to tell you more about the KKK and the ADL. And then I will finally get to how those Romanovs traveled from Russia to Israel, sent all their mobster friends over directly into the United States. But for that and for today, I'm a little bit out of air. So I will chat with you later. Be safe out there. And if you could possibly help me with a laptop, it would be very much appreciated. Solidarity would go a long ways. If you've made a choice to call me crazy, that's your choice. I'm still here. I've never been crazy. I'm going to be driven crazy soon because that's the effect of this dirty electricity in my home. But in the meantime, I'm still standing, I'm still fighting, and I'm challenging it all. So stand tall. Be safe out there. Goodbye for now.